Hey guys, just going to talk you through your notes for day 3. Not too different from what we did last class, but there's a few just quick clarifications here. We're still talking about our slope and y-intercept. Slope, remember, that one is our rate of change, so it might be something to make sure is in your notes that that's the rate of change. It's your change in y over the change in x. Sometimes we call that also our rise over our run, and we're going to use that today when we're looking at some graphs. It's how steep a line is, and in our y equals mx plus b, think about what our slope is in that case, and slope is the m. Then when we're talking about our y-intercept, remember that's our b. It's where it crosses the y-axis. So, just a couple things to think about. Make sure that this formula is one that's sticking in your head. Remember, slope is the m. That's your slope. And then the b, remember, that is your y-intercept. So in a graph, the y-intercept, remember, that is where it crosses our y-axis. And for slope, that's where we go from one point to the next point, and it is our rise over our run. So we think about rise over run. If it's a rise that goes up, it's a positive rise. If it goes down, it's a negative rise. Then it's the same thing for our run. When we think about our run, if it goes to the left, that's a negative. If it goes to the right, that's a positive. It's just like if you think about a number line, what makes sense for positive and negativity for a number line. Some different kinds of slopes to think about. A positive is increasing, negative is decreasing. Zero slope, remember for our slope dude, how he said that this is zero fun. That's the same thing. And then we have this undefined slope. Undefined slope, remember, is just straight up and down. If you look at the examples of slope for steepness down here, if you look at these, not steep is a small slope. Look at that, change is a small change, a little steeper, then it gets even steeper. And then if you look here, a very steep slope has a slope of 4. So looking at your work that you'll be doing, I have an example here of your homework, and I just want to talk you through a few quick things. If you have your homework in front of you, you can obviously do that. But if you don't have it in front of you, this will just kind of help you make sure that you're ready to go when you do get the assignment page. So for day 3 homework, we're looking for slope, y-intercept, and equation. So for slope, we look for our rise over our run. So we look at the change between these two, which is a positive 8. And then we look for the change between these, which is a positive 2. And I always just double check that it's the same slope as we go for, that it's a consistent rate of change. And I notice here that it's 8 and 2 again. So our slope is 8 over 2, which is the same thing as 4. Then for our y-intercept, remember, that's where we look where x is equal to 0, and that's going to be 3 in this case. So then we can create our equation. Y equals, there's our mx plus b. Then, moving down here, we're going to do a couple more. Whoopsies, I didn't mean to do that. We're going to do a couple more here where we're going to look at some different examples that we have. So another example that I want to talk through, I'm going to get my page set up here. Woo, kind of going back and forth. For number 1 here, where Jan has been collecting rubber duckies. She's been collecting quite a few. We have to figure out first what is our x and our y. Remember, x is our independent. So this case, it is years. Sorry, my writing's so bad here. And then our y is ducks. So then we look at our slope. Our slope is she's getting 10 more every year. So 10 more every year, that's our rate of change. So that's going to be 10 for our slope. And then when we look at our y-intercept, remember that that's our start. What she started with is 45. So remember, it's start and change. So our equation is going to be y equals mx plus b. Okay, so looking at a different type of problem down here at the very bottom, you'll be asked to find the slope of each pair of coordinates. So for these first ones, I would just get in the habit of making an XY table, and we have 3 and 5, if we look at our coordinates that are right there, and then we have 9 and 8. And for those, I'd figure out what was our rate of change. Well, the rate of change here was a positive 3, and the rate of change here was a positive 6. So for this problem right there, we would have a slope of 3 over 6, which is equal to 1/2. So on the back side of your worksheet, you're going to be asked to do the same thing, but this time you're looking at it from a graphs perspective. So for these graphs that we have, we're going to do one together. And for this graph, first we're going to figure out our slope and our y-intercept, and then we'll come up with our equation. I'm going to do our y-intercept first because I can kind of just see it right there. If you notice, that y-intercept is where it crosses that y, and it's going to be a 3. And then for our slope, I know it's kind of tricky to see with the copies because that's kind of the state of what we have for copies, but if you look at here, you can count up. We do our rise first. We're going to count up, and it's 1, 2, 3, and that's a positive 3. And then we're going to go to the right 1, which is a positive 1. So a slope of 3 over 1 is the same thing as just 3. So then we'd write our equation as y equals mx plus b, and in this case, I shouldn't write b as our number. I'm going to write the number 3. So that's how you look at those graphs. We also have down here, you're going to be filling in some empty boxes. So for these, you're going to figure out what are the elements that are missing from these equations. So the first one, we have the slope is -4, the y-intercept is 7, and so our equation is y equals -4x plus 7. Then for some, you have the equation and you have to work backwards. So in this one here where we have y equals 9, so I'll do this one right there. Our y-intercept is going to be 9, and then for our slope is going to be 0. So it's going to be a graph that's similar to this one where our y-intercept is 9, and that's going to be a 0 fun graph. So you'll have a couple of those as well. Make sure you stop by if you have any questions. Otherwise, remember Tuesday Flex is all about algebra on this day 3 stuff, and my Thursday Flex as well. All right, thanks.